All right, 1 Kings 10, let's call this one Heard Again, but maybe subtitle it Another Wise Woman, because for maybe about the third time in maybe the last month or so, we are ending these weeks with stories of wise women or women who were instrumental in the way that things played out in the chapter. And this time it is going to be the Queen of Sheba coming to visit Solomon. And it's going to be because his fame, once again, and Israel's fame at this point, has spread throughout the world. And this is a chapter that is once again going to conclude with much of what we saw in chapter 4, and that is the fame of Israel attracting people from all over to hear Solomon's wisdom, reminding us that it wasn't just the fact that he was smart, because we can be smart in very off-putting ways, but go back to the beginning to understand how he got smart or wise in the first place. And it's because he wanted basically the ability to serve well as king. Not to reign well as king, but to serve well as king. There's a difference, because he wanted to be an instrument for the people's lives to simply get better. And because he wanted to do that for Israel, God has now made him an instrument for helping the entire world gain wisdom. And so when the Queen of Sheba comes to Solomon, one of the more important things to notice as well might be the fact that he exceeded her expectations, meaning she heard one thing, but he was even wiser and even more of a blessing than she had heard when she not only heard his wisdom, but she saw once again evidence of how the people around him were living. So it wasn't just Solomon being a great man in the midst of all of this poverty and squalor. It was Solomon being the greatest in a kingdom that was being blessed by his leadership. And so that is what she saw. And so, God willing, to the degree that people get to meet us, hopefully we are exceeding the expectations set on the four corners of our resumes, or as an organization, our job descriptions. Hopefully, at a bare minimum, we are not disappointing, meaning writing ourselves up to be something that we simply are not committed to being. God willing, like Solomon, we are carrying the kind of wisdom that says, even if I'm not what I have previously described myself to be on my resume, I realize what it is like to have been disappointed by lofty resumes and job descriptions. Therefore, I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to make sure that people, much like Solomon, when they see me, they are actually pleased with what they're getting in comparison to what they have heard. So likewise, Solomon now has this relationship with the Queen of Sheba where she has seen. He is much more than what she has heard, and now she is giving him gifts far beyond what he might have expected, because this is going to be a historic meeting where the chapter is going to say that never again did the kingdom of Israel get the kind of gifts that the Queen of Sheba brought during this visit, at least in the way of the spices that she brought to Solomon. So it's not going to just be Solomon. We're going to see again the developing relationship between Solomon and Hiram, as this is another chapter that is going to go into how it's going to be on their construction, the way that they are now sailing the seas together. And so in Solomon, we are getting to see someone who seems to consistently exceed expectations, not only with Hiram, even though when he rewarded Hiram with a number of cities in thanks for all of the gifts that Hiram had given to him, Hiram was kind of like, really? These are the cities you're giving me for all? Okay, either way. But their relationship was able to survive that disappointment because their working relationship continued to grow. As they started as one thing, but now it's another thing. They got a navy sailing together. And so may God bless us all to be the kind of people who exceed expectations to the point where our short interactions or our short relationships grow into something more, because people not only respect our integrity, but the degree to which we are exceeding their expectations to the point where they, like Hiram, want to prolong their business or working relationships with us. And like the Queen of Sheba, if they can only be around us for a short period of time, want to give more than they intended to give, because we ended up being more than they expected us to be. So once again, as we sometimes say, God's best to you as you go forward in him. This time, God willing, not simply settling for being an example of integrity, but this time setting an example for integrity in the way that you exceed the expectations generated by your resume, your write-up, your job description, etc.